Hello, welcome to another episode of Manga Monday. My name is Jason Hahn, and today we're talking about My Hero Academia, chapter 371, officially titled Together with Shoji. But we are also going to talk about the newest episode of the season 6 anime, which the newest episode dealt with the awakening of Shigaraki and oh boy, a lot of big problems are going to stem from that. But we'll be talking about both of these things. We'll start with the anime first, so anybody who's not 100% caught up on the manga can still enjoy our lovely voices talking about the newest episode of the anime. But once again, I am Jason Hahn, writer for ScreenRant.com. I happen to write a lot of video game related stuff for the site, but I'm a huge manga fan, so I started Manga Mondays to talk about the series we love. And I could talk about this all by myself, but I got some buddies with me today. Ben, how are you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. I'm Ben. I'm also a writer for Screen Rant. I write for the comics, anime, manga sections, and yeah, I really enjoyed this latest chapter, so I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, we're against kind of sticking with the all the society drama that's going around this very angry class of people who are have felt downtrodden their entire lives, and we're getting to some pretty substantial subject material. We've talked about it in previous podcasts, especially the last one, where we kind of wish had all happened maybe 100 or 2 chapters ago. But we have a good amount of stuff to talk about. So we also got Carlisle with us today, man. How are you?
Hey, I'm Carlisle Edmondson. I am also a writer in the anime and manga department, and yeah, this was a very fun episode to watch, and I've watched it in pieces several times now while I've been writing things. So it's definitely a great episode.
Yeah, for anybody who's read ahead in the manga, they know some stuff is happening. Pretty exciting stuff to look forward to. But I thought this episode just was a great, like, we thought all the heroes were about to win. Everything's feeling solved, and even the score of this newest episode was just very like for the lack of a better term, ethereal. It was just very light and just kind of setting the tone for like the calm before the storm, essentially. um, and I know you said that you haven't watched the anime yourself, but we also got Steven with us today to talk some My Hero Academia. How's it going, man?
Hey, yeah, it's going well. My name is Steven, like everyone else here, except for Jason, who is an awesome gamer writer. Um,
It's me.
I've I write for the manga, comics, anime side, in addition to some interviews. Yeah, I'm here to talk about the manga since I'm not cool enough to watch the anime yet. So I will be AFK for most of the. That's the first part of the discussion.
Oh man, gamer terms. I know exactly what he's talking about. Okay. Well, yeah. Is this? I think this is episode 4 or 5 of the 6th season of the anime, and the last we left it, the heroes had just broken Shigaraki's tank. The high end Nomus were eviscerating my bunny girl, Mirako, and the animation was awesome. We also got the very emotional moment between Hawks, Dabi, and Twice. Unfortunately, we had to see the death of Twice in the last couple episodes, and I thought the anime has handled all of these instances really well with the proper weight. The voice acting has just been on point. Really feel bad for anybody who is turned off by season 5 of the anime and hasn't been watching, because the people making the anime right now are doing a fantastic job, in my opinion. But getting to see Shigaraki awaken just seems so much more brutal than I remember it being. It's been a while since I've read that part of the story, but I just essentially remember like him waking up and then everything exploding around him. He's leveled up his decay ability to just be able to decay everything around him without having to use all 5 of his fingers, and anything that decay touches can also decay. and especially in this episode, we got to see Deku try to kick. He used 45% of his full power to cause like a wind blast, essentially, that wasn't enough to stop the decay. Todoroki had to come in and use a giant iceberg to further block it, but it's everything leading up to that was just like Deku crossing the street and the street lights blinking green, about to turn red. It's just all these little things that just culminated in the big bad showing up. The worst case scenario is upon us. But what were some of the other things about this episode that you guys enjoyed?
Well, that worst case scenario is all one person's fault, and that is that X-list guy. He definitely could have ended all this, and he did not.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, you could say, oh, he thought Shigaraki was already dead, but like, no, I just shoot the head anyways.
Yeah, double tap.
Double tap.
Careful. Yeah, double tap. Well, he paid the price for it, but no,
Yeah,
all his fault.
and,
Some
and
hero.
and just like how nonchalantly Shigaraki's just like, I'm cold. Hey, you're wearing a big cape, and he just disintegrates him on the spot and takes the cape. And of course, we've got all the Akira parallels there with a whole bunch. And but the part that I really enjoyed too is just the there was the moment, I don't know if it was this episode or the one before it, but when Dark Shadow was like charging through the tunnels of the mansion, and he gets to see us pretty much the under dungeon where all the bad guys are hanging out, and he sees guy Giga Machina is kind of how I say it in my head, but that's probably not the proper way to say it.
Kind of the Japanese way to say it. If you're in English, they always say Gigantomachia.
Gigantomachia, okay. Well, he sees him and he's instantly like, that's bad. There's something really bad down there. And so we've just had that ticking time bomb the whole time of like, okay, well, if Shigaraki never wakes up, then that guy's just going to stay asleep staring at a radio his entire life. Interesting. Well, that all happened in this chapter, and that's how it ended. A fantastic cliffhanger, I thought. And we finally got probably my favorite part of the episode, and a great episode that I've been gabbing about for a while, is the giant lady getting thrown away by a gigantic ice attack, and Fat Gum looking up into the sky, and the sky being completely overcome by a bottom. And getting to see him just yell, "A bottom!" and running away from Gluteus Maximus's of death. I thought they did pretty well of that moment, because I know as soon as that chapter came out, Reddit definitely was blowing up about it. I thought that was well handled.
My favorite little detail was Koda in the background recruiting all of the animals in the city to make sure that they got evacuated. That was great.
Oh yeah, all the
What a
kitties.
delightful superpower use.
Yeah, and all the people are just like, "Oh, look how cute they are." And oh yeah, I remember that guy just like, "Remember, you better keep this building safe. My manifesto records are in here." And just like, dude, get your priorities straight.
I
Pick it up,
wonder
take
if
it with
I wonder if this is
Exactly.
a phenomenon related to like the latest chapters featuring Koda more, and thus like looking back and seeing more of Koda in action. We're like, oh,
Yeah.
it's Koda. That's great. Koda's
He definitely
great.
had a good role in this manga chapter as well.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think that he is about to have an even bigger role. But yeah, we'll definitely be getting into that. Yeah, it was a fantastic episode of the anime. It's been a couple days since I watched it, so it's not nearly as fresh in my brain as it was, but I just really enjoyed all of the foreshadowing and all the little details that they threw into this episode, because this is definitely not sure how far this anime season is going to go. But so far, the anime seasons have been around 20-something episodes long, and they usually do like a mid-season break. kind of breaking up the arcs and stuff like that. So I know we discussed in the last podcast too that you guys think this entire arc, this whole fight that's about to happen, might be the entire season. But I kind of hope that it might be just the first half of this season, and then we go on a bit of a break. And then the second half maybe gets to Dark Deku stuff, which should be very exciting. I'm not going to get too much into that about spoilers. But this is essentially going to be like, this is like the last calm before the storm. We have so much action and so many big moments ahead of us, and we'll definitely be talking about it here on the podcast, so look forward to that. But is there anything else in this episode that really stood out for you guys?
I also appreciated the talking about Kurogiri a little bit more again, and that whole situation. It definitely gave me some stuff to think about in the context of those flashbacks to Shirakumo in the Vigilantes manga, because there was never any indication that somebody had killed Shirakumo on purpose, and that was an interesting thing to learn, especially knowing that they were intending to get Aizawa.
Oh yeah, so that was Aizawa's and Present Mike's buddy. I forgot his name, so I was kind of clearing that up for readers too. But he had the teleportation powers that Kurogiri has, and Kurogiri has been transformed into what he is now from the corpse of Aizawa's and Present Mike's buddy. But yeah, that's a great point. In this episode, the scientist kind of brings up, or at least hints that he was kind of killed, or the whole incident was set up to try to capture Aizawa, or at least get the corpse of Aizawa so that they could have the cork cancellation ability. So yeah, it's just every time that we get to like, oh yeah, this bad thing that happened 15 years ago or something like that, then one of the bad guys comes out of nowhere and they're just like, actually, I was in charge of that. I am the big bad who's controlled all the bad things that have happened forever. And we're like, whoa. And I kind of wonder, like, is there anything in this series that like just happened by accident, or is just everything all for one's fault? Including oh boy, I was about to drop huge spoiler. that's manga chat. I can't talk about that. But
we could transition to manga chat.
Well, yeah. I'm kind of running out of steam on the anime episode because it was really just a lot of great cinematic choices that they made to kind of push in the whole like, oh man, everything's really calm right now. I feel like something really bad's about to happen. And that this episode nailed that. So well, yeah, we could definitely move into manga chat if there's nothing else about this episode you guys want to talk about.
Yeah, I'm good.
That'll do it for our chat on the anime episode. A little bit of a small chat on it, I'm sorry. But really enjoying where the anime is at right now. It's probably one of my favorite arcs of the series, and they're handling it beautifully. But we're going to go ahead and jump into talking about the newest chapter of My Hero Academia, which is 371. Definitely not the first Mega Manga Mondays discussion on My Hero Academia. You can check out our previous chats on the website. megamangamondays.podbean.com, and we have a YouTube channel as well. But I almost laid out a huge spoiler in our anime chat about it just seems like All For One and his cronies have been responsible for all the terrible incidences that have happened forever in this entire series. We were previously talking about how in this latest episode, the scientist brings up that Aizawa and Present Mike's friend, who died when they were kids, his death is because All For One and the scientist were trying to get Aizawa's ability. And the friend that eventually turned into Kurogiri was unfortunately the one who died instead, and they're like, oh, I guess we'll just go ahead and get these teleportation powers. Oh man, not nearly as cool, whatever. And I was almost dropped the bombshell of when Toya is burning alive after he had his big fight with his dad when he was a kid. It seemed All for One just magically appeared there and knew exactly what to do to, or knew where to be to, capture him.
That's All for One's real quirk.
Yeah, just being at the right place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, especially this anime episode just kind of drove home. It's just like, wait, is this like everything that's ever bad happened because of All for One? Or is there any things that's just like, oh, that was just a pure accident? Like that sort of thing just happens. But I'm sure there's plenty of instances that I could be proven wrong, but it's just kind of the thing that you run into, I think, where if you explain everything, or if you call back everything bad that's ever happened, just like, oh, well, actually, that was our plan all along. Or like, oh, wow, that's convenient, I guess. But this newest chapter of My Hero Academia picked up right where we left off with the Hetromorph rebellion going towards the hospital to try to rescue Kirigiri, and Spinner is just losing his mind. He is just a big hulking monster, exactly the thing that he has consistently said that he would not turn into, and some of our theories proved right in this latest chapter, actually. We were kind of guessing that Spinner was so far gone that he can't necessarily be like the leader for all these heteromorphs who are trying to convince the world that they're not monsters. And it was actually even the beginning of this chapter. They're just like, yeah, Spinner, you tell him. We trust in you, and you're just. You tell him how it is. And he's like, I don't care. And all the heteromorphs are like, wait, what? and then the guy on the skyscraper who peeled off his hood and is just some heteromorph guy that I don't believe we've met, until somewhat recently in the series, is just like, no, actually he means don't care. What he's actually saying is history is written in blood and this is all unavoidable. And you're just like, wow, man, what a translation there. And again, it's just like, I really like all the stuff that this chapter is trying, or this part of the story is trying to go with. It's poignant, it's important, it's great, it's heartfelt. I just wish it didn't take 371 chapters to get there.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm going to say is really short. I mean, unfortunately, I haven't been really feeling this whole Spinner thing, which is ironic because I got really excited when they brought him back in that final panel a few chapters ago. But it's for that very reason where I'm kind of tired of like how Horikoshi has just been, bringing in these characters we've seen for a while but haven't really known anything about and suddenly making them important. And unfortunately, I'm not being drawn into what's happening right now. I mean, my whole big thing from the chapter, and we can talk about this later, is the whole scene with Mineta. But that's just my 2 cents, my sad 2 cents.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd hear that phrase. My favorite part of this chapter.
Oh, right.
Or 2 panels. There we go.
To kind of bring that up, it was during a pretty heartfelt flashback from Shoji, who's kind of going back, and Shoji and Nighthawk all grew up in the city, which is definitely a little bit more accepting of heteromorphs and how it's integrated them into society, while Shoji grew up on the outskirts in a small town that essentially wanted him dead, or they, to quote the manga here, they all came out in force for a blood cleansing when I touched somebody. So even if he touched somebody, they were ready for blood and to murder this child who just looked different.
And note, it's not, we see the touching incident, and it's not like he just, touched someone randomly, but he actually touched someone to save their life, right? Because they were drowning in a river, and he saved them.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes it even worse because, they're like, even though he saved her, it's just disgusting that he's this heteromorph, and I can't believe it. We gotta kill him.
Yeah, I know that. I didn't necessarily correlate to that being the exact instance that they were referring to, but they do have the moment where he's like getting hit by some giant dude. They bring up the blood cleansing, and then a little bit later, he's saying, "I'd rather not focus on all the bad things that have happened. I'd rather focus on the one of the few memories I've had where I was happy to have this body." And he was saving a little girl drowning in some rapids, and it's it's just that little bit of optimism, and that's honestly how I kind of choose to live my life too. Growing up, my father was just always overflowing with positivity, possibly toxic positivity at some points, but I was just taught to like look at the positives rather than the negatives, and I really enjoyed that bit here. And after he delivered that line, Mineta was all like, "Oh boy, I called him an octopus once. I'm so sorry." And it's a very human moment for Mineta, but it's just nice to see Mineta not be creepy, and B, like have a nice moment with a fellow character in the series that's not a chick and not him being a total creepo. So we've successfully added a little bit of depth to Mineta.
See, I actually didn't like the Mineta moment because I felt it was out of character.
Yeah.
But also it was just sort of like a, for me at least, and maybe this is just because, in America we have so many stories dealing with this sort of discrimination in a lot of nuance and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that this isn't a nuanced take on anything, but it's like the whole like, Mineta like, oh, I didn't realize, I'm actually here for you and stuff, and like that just felt very sort of,
like on the nose.
Yeah, on the nose. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So it, I was kind of like, okay, that's a just standard thing, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that kind of all relates to the thing that we've all agreed on too in the last podcast about this. Is just like, this is all interesting subject material, but it just feels like too little too late at this point in the story. And if we had an entire arc sort of dissecting this, and sort of, it would have been like if we had a moment where like Deku and Shoji and Koda like went on a mission together, and you got to see like firsthand the discrimination and the effects of it and all that. But it's just been an afterthought in the entire series until it needed to not be, and here we are.
Yeah, and kind of just to build off of what Ben was saying too, because I actually wrote about this scene with Mineta, and it's funny what Ben said was actually what I came up with in the conclusion part of the article, basically saying, well, while it was a nice sentiment, and it's something that especially in the United States, it's something that a lot of people of privilege have had to go through their own reckoning, especially recently. It was that it kind of happened to like the wrong character. I mean, obviously, Mineta is creepy and stuff, and it's refreshing to see his type of character go through something like this. But at the same time, it would have been so much more impactful if this type of reckoning happened to a character who is known for being discriminatory or having questionable bigoted views, because like it was something that we've never seen from Mineta. We've never known him as being the guy who says these really off-putting things that have nothing to do with women or stuff like that. So
Yeah, I was gonna say he says a lot of off-putting things,
which is why I said, yeah, he said off-putting things, but not about that, just about women and that type of perverted stuff.
Actually, I would argue it might be the perfect character for that because we haven't had Mineta, be like racist or anything like that, but he is definitely the most like objective character. Like he looks at people so objectively, judges them by their looks and their beauty.
Yeah,
And
now
stuff like that.
we know that Mineta's both a pervert and a bigot. It's character development.
How can Ben like him less?
Yeah.
I think the only problem is just that the pervert in anime and manga is such a prevalent trope that it's hard to see him and anything else but that, and not being as in depth of a character. So I think, like, I do like that idea, but it's just the fact that he is basically a cookie cutter version of that trope that it's hard to see him beyond anything than that. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I think it makes sense.
But I mean, then again, it is really nice to see, and I guess it just really hit close to home, just because there's a lot of people who've been going through that type of thing. So it is refreshing to see that in a manga, because it really is an important issue, and being able to realize your own faults and shortcomings and being able to tackle them rather than just getting offensive is really, it's nice to see.
Yeah.
I think I've seen a lot of people who didn't like this because of the particular call out of city versus rural, but that's a stereotype for a reason. That's where a lot of the very open hostility comes from. So if you don't like that accusation and you live in a rural area, then maybe do your part to dissuade the people around you from being bigoted.
Yeah. I mean, you look at any like voting results in the United States, and you can see like the huge cities seem to always vote quite differently than the small rural cities and areas and stuff like that. And
I mean, just
but even then, it's. I mean, I'm not saying that that trend doesn't exist in America, at least, and presumably around the world. But there's also more nuance to it than that as well, because oftentimes in urban areas, it manifests in different ways, right? Like,
Very
so it's not always, oh, well, in the cities it's a utopia, but out in the country it's, it's the Middle Ages. It's just, there are problems everywhere. But I do think, Carlisle's right, where it's like, this is an accurate thing that happens. It's just, I feel like more nuance could have been put into it.
Well, it's a lot of story to tackle, and they've been trying to do it in just a couple chapters, which is
and that's the problem of it.
Or
Right?
just a couple of cells. Like what bothered me initially. It's just the fact that it's like, oh yes, there's a problem in the cities, and it's much worse there. It's like, okay, well, I know that, but how about you show it? I don't know.
Yeah.
This is another topic that Vigilantes handles pretty well, because they have that quirk enhancing drug trigger that plays a big role in the plot, and some of the people who had heteromorphic abilities who were exposed to trigger ended up permanently mutating, kind of like Spinner here is, and so they got their minds back, but they ended up being like just giant, very like 10 feet tall, and having a very difficult time. And so we actually watched these characters over the course of Vigilantes. They were criminals, they get rescued, they open a cafe and start running a maid cafe, but for people who are heteromorphs and gigantic and have a hard time fitting into society.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they start a business and it does great, and they end up helping a lot of other people who are like that. And it's just a really nice subplot that actually kind of dealt with this the whole way through, which we haven't had anything like that in the main manga, really.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wouldn't it have been nice if that happened in My Hero? But
Well, who knows? Maybe Spinner at the end of this will, change his mind and become a good guy, and he'll, maybe join like the fire brigade and be able to put out the hard to reach fires or something. Or maybe he'll become a baker with a giant oven. I'm not sure. You guys think
Yeah.
Spinner will have a happy ending at the end of all this?
I think there's
I
only
don't-
one way,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
if Stain shows up.
Yeah, but I don't think I still don't have high hopes for Spinner. I think
Yeah.
Spinner's being portrayed as a tragic case of just like, he was taken advantage of, and this is the result of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been a few parallels to it, and that one doesn't help for me. But especially reading this, I was like, man, Spinner is definitely like. It's been established that Horikoshi's a huge Spider-Man fan, so it's hard not to like compare Spinner to Dr. Kurt Connors, also known as the Lizard Man.
Oh yeah.
And,
Well, the lizard, not the lizard man.
oh, is it? Okay, thank you.
It's just yeah.
Or Dr. Lizard, as he might like to
No,
be
it's,
called.
it's just the lizard.
Okay. I will trust my more experienced comic friends here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just, this chapter kind of started to get me to like see if there's any parallels there in my mind, and I'm not sure, as somebody who's read more Spider-Man than me. What do you think there?
I mean, yeah, the lizard is, or at least the lizard has been portrayed in the past as, someone who, it's just like, it's kind of lost control. It's, it's a personality that wants to take over the world, and Kurt Connors can't really control it. But in more recent times, the lizard, Kurt has been able to have his own mind in the lizard form and live that way. I'm pretty sure his whole family is now lizards. And they're just living their life as lizards in the sewers. But they're all in control now. So maybe that could be something that happens with Spinner. Who knows?
Well, yeah, one thing that I read the fan translation and the official translation. I thought the official translation did a much better job in this chapter, just kind of clarifying that All for One gave Spinner more than one quirk. At the beginning of this chapter, he's just saying pretty much if the what was it? Just getting the right terminology down, but the body bulk is the one that he was previously using to make him this big, much bigger, and then he gives him scale mail, which turns him into essentially this final form, just gigantic, scaly, almost like, it looks like blades coming out of his hands and stuff. Actually, there's a panel where it just straight up looks like blades cutting up Shoji really bad. He loses one of his hands, but he can grow one. He's got another one. Oh,
well, that's his crazy sword that's made up of other swords.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about. We had that panel of him just holding that and drooling like drooling like crazy. So Spinner, and it seems like the more he's like relying on these quirks, the more he's losing his sanity. I don't know. Stain showing up would be an interesting twist. I just don't. The more we look at Spinner, the more it seems like he's getting lost. And at the end, I mean, even Shoji's like dropping some great lines, just like, if you keep doing this, you're gonna set us back 30 years, like. And Spinner just doesn't want to have any of it. He's just like, just destroy it all. Shut up. It's just one thing about this chapter that kind of bugged me too was anytime Shoji he's delivering philosophy like a prophet here, consistently saying all the right things, and it seems like everybody within a few square blocks can hear them. Because every time Shoji's saying something, it's cutting back to that heteromorph on top of the rooftop. It's just saying like, well, if that was true, if we could all bury the hatchet, it'd be, we would have done that already. Ha 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 ha. And it feels a little dumb, but it just kind of all feels like it's all leading up to, I think Shoji's gonna die. I think
Really?
he's going to be I think he's going to die to prove a point that, possibly one of the most, I don't want to say deformed, but one of the most, I don't know, as far as heteromorphs go, Shoji is definitely the most heteromorph-y looking person that we've met. Um, it, I don't know of a better way to say that. So I think it would be really powerful if he was the one to essentially become a martyr, but for the right reasons rather than all the bad reasons that they're like making Spinner and all these other heteromorphs like the martyrs to make a point. Shoji is trying really hard here to make his point, and it's even been kind of getting to all this crowd that's this mob. And it seems like there's been a couple things that he said that make them like stop in their tracks and like, maybe he's right. And then we cut to rooftop guy just being like, oh no, you're pathetic cry of your ego, ha 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 ha, I'm a bad guy. And then Koda comes in and his head is bigger now and he is controlling even more animals. And yeah, I don't know. Koda's another character we haven't really spent any time with throughout this entire series, and I kind of wish I knew him more. But he just seems like he is a more empathetic character than he seems like he's the most empathetic character of like Class 1A because he's always consistently like very soft and natured, usually the first one to cry, the most soft spoken, and kind of seeing him losing his composure, and at the end there he's controlling, is it what, like thousands of birds it looks like? Yeah, this one I'm looking at right here.
Yeah, a lot of animals at least.
Yeah. So excited to see what that's gonna lead into in the next chapter, but yeah, I feel like I've been gabbing for quite a bit about it. What were some of your guys' takes?
I guess yeah, I'll just jump in and say, 'cause I've been trying to think like why I haven't been able to connect with this story as much, and I'm wondering if one of the things has to do with, back in, I think it was chapter 330 or around that area, and of course, All for One was most likely, lying or whatever, but it was just the fact that Spinner's original mission that we were told about had to do with Shigaraki in some way, like coming to help Shigaraki.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess when I was coming into this whole Spinner story is that's what I was looking for. And it feels like this whole heteromorph story is kind of like just random filler. Like, even though it's like a really important moment, obviously, it just feels like this is just sudden, and it's a sudden problem that we haven't been really seeing before or tackling. I'm wondering if I would have felt more involved if what Spinner was doing now was somehow directly correlated with Shigaraki's battle. Just a thought.
Well, it likely will get
Yeah.
directly correlated with Shigaraki's
what I
battle,
was gonna
considering that it's implied that All for One is going to do something related to Spinner to shift the tides in that fight, as the last thing we saw before coming to this sort of plot thread was him thinking about Spinner. But I mean, I agree with you that I think it just does feel like filler, honestly. It feels like kind of shoved in there as like an afterthought, honestly. Like,
Remember that the goal here is to get to Kurogiri, and presumably getting to Kurogiri would then get them over to Shigaraki. So that is kind of the end goal of this confrontation.
yeah, but realistically, like, I mean, you could have put any fight here and it would have served the same purpose. It feels sort of like window dressing, honestly, or which is unfortunate because it's a very interesting part of the series and a part of the world that hasn't really been explored as much. So it's nice to see it get explored more, but it just is a shame that it's sort of relegated to this small part of the final fight. So
I think it also feels a little bit less interesting, perhaps because we waited so long to cut over here,
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
we really did wait till like the climax of that previous fight to jump over here, and it's like this stuff is cool, and it would have been cool when it was fresh and new 20 chapters ago, but now that we've got, you know, Bakugo's still on the ground, and we've got this big confrontation with Deku and Shigaraki, and now
That
we're over
we've
here to
waited
this. It's
for.
hard to measure up to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like the series went and like showed us stuff that we've been waiting for so long, and honestly, I'm sure it probably peaked for a lot of readers who have been waiting years for that confrontation to happen. And then you jump over to this stuff, which is sure interesting, but when you go from I'm not necessarily saying the fight has been 10 out of 10, Deku versus Shigaraki, but you know it's up there in hype levels and stuff, and it's just kind of a weird thing to like go there and then jump over to all this other stuff. And honestly, that was our big fear too, is just like you're going to be showing this, and even if you jump over to Toga or Spinner or anybody else, it's just going to feel like less impactful because you know they decided to have Deku show up and do that fight already. So it's I think that fight still has some escalating to do. I've talked about it in previous podcasts on where we think what we think will happen next between Deku and Shigaraki. So feel free to go back and listen to those if you'd like. But yeah, I think we're all in agreement here. This is like it's cool, but it feels like there's so many moments in this arc overall in general that just feel mismatched. And I'm wondering, you know, if we'll feel differently once it's all said and done and we're not reading it week to week.
It's kind of like what's happening right now is what My Hero did with the whole Aoyama thing. It's like when the whole traitor reveal happened and we found it was Aoyama, it was like, wait, what? Why? But then it was after, you know, you sit with it for a while and then realize, oh yeah, like 300 chapters earlier, you know, there was that creepy moment with Aoyama where he was following Deku around and leaving cheese on his window or something like that. Like it kind of does this whole mismatch thing where that storyline should have happened right before the traitor reveal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like what's happening now with Spinner. Yeah, it's just kind of unfortunate. It's how things have been working out chronologically. And also, back to Toga too. Like, even though I want Toga more than anything, the more we're away from it, the more it feels like it's going to be completely random when we get back to them. Like, that's what I want more than anything from the series. But like, the more we're like not with them, especially with Spinner, who's like this really secondary character, it's going to be so awkward when we eventually get back to Toga.
And it's also just the subject material we're tackling before we jump over to that. It's like we have a whole, you know, percentage of the population who's been discriminated against. We have all these people there who just want to be able to live their lives peacefully and not be judged for their appearance. And then we snap back to this girl has a crush on this person and she's murdering people because of it. And it's just like it just feels very mismatched there.
Yeah, even if it does have plot relevance, because, you know, Toga has twice his blood and that's being set up as something, like, it just feels like window dressing. Just like this, I'd say. Even if it's window dressing that we've wanted to see, it's like having it be relegated to basically just a plot point, right? To be like, oh, well, you know, this is happening, but the real reason we're showing this is just so this plot thing can happen to drive the war forward, not because we actually care about, you know, what's going on here.
No,
I feel like that. Right now. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's. I mean, and maybe Horikoshi will prove us wrong, right? I think that Horikoshi is one of those authors who, you know, even though we can complain about certain things that happen, there are some epic moments that they're able to produce and just be like, wow, they really just blew us away. I mean, this chapter has some epic moments, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
the final 2 pages I think were really, really cool, and pretty awesome moments for both, Shoji and Koda. But I don't know. It's just it would be. I mean, I think my general complaints with a lot of the latest chapters has been like, I feel like this arc has been structured very poorly and paced very poorly, and I think that's a big issue here as well. So,
I completely agree. But to one bit about this chapter that I did like, just kind of a little thing that I mentioned on how the official translation handled some things really nicely that I liked, was when Shoji is talking about the single good memory he had related to his body when he rescued the little girl, and it makes all of Class 1A break into tears. And they're like, only one good memory? Oh, come on, we'll make 1,000,000 of them together, buddy. And they all do like a Batwing, Shoji's Batwing group hug, I guess, and it was a nice little moment. I was just like, "Oh, they're all friends and family." It's fun.
see, I didn't like that for the same reason I didn't like the Mineta thing, and that it was just sort of like it just felt very
On the nose.
yeah, on the nose, and like and just sort of like unrealistic. I mean, I don't know. I thought it was unrealistic.
Yeah, it is kind of Full House
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, at the end of the day, we all learned a lesson and we're all better. Let's all hug. Let's hug it out, gang. Like it was absolutely that, but I don't know, I was willing to let myself enjoy it. But yeah, it is all quite cheesy for sure.
Or also too, I mean, even in that Mineta scene, another thing that was kind of weird was that after Mineta has that apology and tries to do the right thing, like Shoji almost blames himself for the reason why Mineta may have called him octopus. He's like, oh yeah, it's actually my fault because what I've been doing. It's like, oh, that's really unfortunate. Yeah, and it just kind of took out a lot of the tension that could have been added to this scene. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah. There's just like throughout the series, there's been a lot of things that we've disliked, but as Ben said, there's the potential Horikoshi could bring it all together, and next chapter could be a hell of a banger. So we'll definitely be talking about it on the next Mega Manga Mondays episode of My Hero Academia. But was there anything else about this chapter or My Hero that you guys wanted to bring up?
I guess the last thing to talk about is Koda's head there in the second to last page.
Yeah.
He's clearly undergoing some kind of an awakening. It looks like some kind of signal is emanating from this growth on his head. So I'm guessing it's some kind of a quirk awakening, and his power is going to get stronger in some way, but we don't know exactly what way that's going to be yet.
Yeah, and even in I'll have to find specifically, but oh, here we go. On page 11, there's a panel of Koda kind of pushing past some of the Hetromorphs, and you get kind of a cracking sound coming from his head, and it's already kind of starting to grow there. So, and honestly, the only thing that I could think of that it might be would kind of defeat the purpose of this whole story arc, or this whole thing that we're trying with the Heteromorphs here, is if he's able to even control people, or because I mean,
yeah, I feel like they're not gonna go there, because then that would just be like, are Heteromorphs people or are they animals?
Yeah, it would be a really weird message for them to throw out if that was the case, but because I mean, Koda's whole ability, he's not necessarily like hypnotizing or controlling animals, but he's able to just communicate with animals, right? Do we know?
Yeah, he's got that kind of, he can command them, but I think it's kind of like that Aquaman, like telling them what to do, not necessarily like a compulsion.
Okay. So yeah, I almost wonder if if that's what his ability is going to do, if he could even do that against people or just all living things. But if he's able to just do that and it's controlling people to do things, then it's going to be a very different story. But if it's just a way to calm everybody down and stuff like that, it'd be kind of an OP power. Uh, yeah, I don't know. It could definitely be very broken, if it's as crazy as we suspect it could be. But yeah, I don't know.
And I guess I'll just do something blatant like I always do, in comparing it to Black Clover. But I think, yeah, with this whole last Koda thing, where he could be undergoing an awakening, which is the actual cliffhanger for the next chapter. I feel like it would have been more effective if it was done like what happened in Black Clover with Charmy, just because her whole awakening thing probably wouldn't have been as impactful if Tabata didn't deal with it the way that he did, and that he didn't just make it a cliffhanger that we all had to wait for, because she was basically a character not many people cared about, but he had her transformation happen in the middle of the chapter, and it was just so like a 180 of what she actually was, or that we knew her as. It made her transformation and her appeal as a character that much more intriguing. And I kind of wish that Horikoshi would have done something like that, at least with Koda, for that particular reason. Like, it's one of those characters we don't care about yet, so you shouldn't really make it a cliffhanger, I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like, I like Black Clover more now.
You like it even more now? I didn't think that was possible.
No, well, no, it's just like keep on seeing all of these things where it's like, I don't know. It's just something where it's just a shame when, I don't know. I'm getting sad. I'll stop talking.
This is making me sad. Well, hopefully the next chapter makes you happy.
Me too.
What would you guys like to see happen next? Because we definitely ended with Koda transforming a little bit, getting mad at Rooftop Man. And then we cut to Spinner and Shoji's continuing fight. And even I don't know. It's kind of a weird moment to try to pinpoint, I guess. But Spinner's losing his sanity. He's just like, I don't care, tear it all down, blah 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 blah. But he has enough semblance to call Shoji gross, which is also even further anti-Spinner, because Spinner's whole thing is, heteromorphs are people. We're not gross. We're people that should be respected. So just Spinner going 180 there on who he used to be, calling Shoji gross, and then Shoji's just like, yeah, this is who I am. And is he doing some things we haven't seen before? I'm not sure. His abilities have always been kind of a question mark for me, but he seems to have an eyeball forming in his arm now, or is he just regenerating really quickly? I don't know. Is he about to grow all of his limbs out further than we've ever seen, and maybe he'll create some big net that Koda will, they'll do some sort of team attack. But really, I don't really see how this all can end without them getting to Kirigiri. Because it just, we have to get to we have to get back to the Deku and Shigaraki thing. And the quickest way to do that is to get to Kirigiri. So, yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think will happen in chapter 372?
I think that it's just gonna continue this fight, and I could even see this fight wrapping up in 372, and then this sort of it ending on the connection to the Shigaraki Deku fight that's happening now. but I don't know. I mean, I'm not hating this current plot thread. I just think it's kind of like less nuanced than it could be.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited to see more of it. See more of Shoji and Koda. It's just I wish that it had been set up more.
Yeah, and I kind of brought it up earlier too. I think I will enjoy this a lot more when it's all said and done, and I reread it someday. Because just we have all the like tension that's been built up between the Deku and Shigaraki fight, that we're just like, okay, that's literally the thing that matters the most, like in this series. And then we jump over to other stuff that we should care about, and it's just like, I really want to get over to the other stuff right now. But once we know where this is all heading, I think this will be more impactful and more enjoyable in hindsight. So, yeah, guys, if there's nothing else, I guess we can go ahead and move into plugs and recommendations. Unless you guys have anything else.
No, I'm good.
I'm good.
All right, groovy. Well, this has been Mega Manga Mondays discussion of My Hero Academia, chapter 371. It's been mostly fun talking to you guys. Steven made me sad, but I'm kidding. It's always fun talking to you guys on My Hero Academia. You definitely help me enjoy the chapters more than I do when I'm just reading them by myself. So thank you for your time today. Yeah, moving into plugs and recommendations. Hope you'll check out other Mega Manga Monday episodes. We have a website, megamangamondays.podbean.com. And you can follow us on Twitter at mmangamondays for updates. And feel free to reach out to us. Would love it if you followed us, and feel free to reach out. Let us know if there's anything about the chapters that you think we missed, or would love to hear your thoughts on the series right now too. Are you absolutely loving this? Are you so glad they moved away from Deku and boring Shigaraki? Boring. Let's go see what Toga and the Hetromorph people are doing, because who wants to see that? Would love to hear your thoughts. But also check out screenrant.com. A lot of my buddies here write some amazing articles in the comics/anime sections. Some very introspective stuff and some very interesting theories that you may not have thought of. So feel free to reach out there or check out that and my stuff in the video game section, reviews and whatnot. I also have a YouTube series called Honzy and Friends. I stream on Wednesdays and Sundays. I'm currently streaming BioShock for the spooky season of Halloween. And we'll probably be streaming some Sonic Frontiers and maybe some God of War Ragnarok in the future.
Oh, Sonic.
Actually, if I can play my cards right, I might have a Mega Manga Monday friend join me for Sonic Frontiers gameplay someday. So, yeah, definitely check that out, and also subscribe to that channel. I'd really appreciate it. Honzy and Friends on YouTube. But that'll do it for my plugs and recommendations. Steven, how about you, man?
Hey, yeah, I'll just say, our conversation about, discrimination and bigotry and My Hero reminded me a lot of Beastars. So that'll be my recommendation. And beyond what's happened in the anime so far. So this will probably, what I'm about to talk about is what will be happening in the next season of the anime, where it just goes much further into racism than other seasons of the anime of Beastars. I think it's actually one of my favorite manga that covers this particular topic, just because I don't even remember who the mangaka is, but the way that they use the various nuances of each animal and relates it to modern day racism and discrimination is just really compelling. Because for me, one of the big things about Beastars, obviously, was the relationship between I'm already blanking on their names, but Haru and Legoshi. But every single time the series gets into the whole aspect of discrimination, I really think there's no other manga that I've been reading really hits it as hard as Beastars. So I would recommend reading the manga, definitely, or watching the 3rd season of the anime once it comes out on Netflix at some point.
Oh, very cool. That's definitely a series I've seen, art of and heard it around, but I haven't checked it out yet. But yeah, I'm gonna have information on all of our plugs and recommendations in the description, so definitely check those out. But Carlisle, how about you, man?
Okay, yeah. You can find me on Twitter. I have now created a new personal Twitter account, which is at CarlisleWCE, CarLyle. So you can follow me there if you want to actually talk about any of this stuff. And if you would rather, you can also follow my new visual novel account that is at Elven Revenue, and find out about the progress that I'm making on my visual novel.
Yeah, he's been giving us updates on his visual novel on our podcast lately, and very, very cool stuff. Did you want to give the pretty much the summary of what your visual novel's about, Elven Revenue Service?
Yeah, Elven Revenue Service is about a barkeep who finds himself in hot water with the eponymous organization. He's being audited by what turns out to be his childhood friend, and now he has to figure out how to navigate this audit as well as all these relationships around him. We have 6 love interests, and they cover a wide variety. So it's a much farther reaching story than you might think from the title.
Well, excellent. Yeah, on his Twitter account for the game, he's been posting a lot of art and stuff for that, and it's looking fantastic and shaping up very well. Excited to see more of that, buddy. And Ben, how about you, man? Uh-oh, do we still have Ben?
Oh, sorry, my mic was muted.
Oh, there you are.
That's my bad. In terms of recommendations, I saw the Black Adam movie recently, and I thought it was very fun.
Oh.
Not a perfect movie by any means, but a nice, blockbuster popcorn flick to watch, especially if you're a fan of the characters. Although they did change one aspect of his origin that I was like, I really wanted them to keep an element in that they took out, but it was still very fun. And in terms of plugs, I have a YouTube channel of my own called YGO from Zero, where I go over historical formats of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. So if that sounds like something that would interest you, definitely check it out.
Excellent. Well, that's one of the first good things I've heard about Black Adam, so that's good to hear. But as I said, I'm going to have information on our plugs and recommendations in the description, so please reach out or please check those out, and we would love to hear from you on our projects and stuff like that. But this has been Mega Manga Mondays discussion on My Hero Academia 371. Looking forward to 372, and we've been enjoying the anime a lot, so we'll definitely be talking about the newest episode of the anime and the new chapters next week. But thank you all for your time, and I look forward to the next ones.
Yeah, see y'all next time.
Yep.
Peace.